Luther King Jr. I notice there's a table of contents. It says Introduction, Life in the South, Starting His Work, I Have a Dream, and Glossary. Introduction. Each year we celebrate Martin Luther King Day. We remember the life and work of a great African American leader. Who was this man? Life in the South. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929. He grew up in a loving family. When he was 19, he decided to become a minister. His first job was at a church in the state of Alabama. Alabama was in the South, where African Americans lived under unfair laws for many years. Before the Civil War, most black people were slaves to white owners. After the Civil War, slavery ended in America, but many states in the South then passed laws to keep black apart from whites. This is Abraham Lincoln. President Abraham Lincoln passed a special law to free the slaves. This is the childhood home of Martin Luther King Jr. These unfair laws took away the rights of many blacks. Black children had to go to different, poorer schools than white children. Blacks had to use different drinking fountains and bathrooms. On buses, blacks had to sit in the back and give up their seats if whites wanted them. In 1955, a black woman refused to give up her bus seat to a white man. She was put in jail for breaking the law. When Martin Luther heard what happened, he decided to act. This says, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus. After her arrest, a police officer took her fingerprints. And this picture says, a black man drinks from a fountain labeled for colored only. In 1960, around the time this photo was taken, colored was the word often used for African Americans. Starting his work. Martin wanted all Americans to have the same rights. He believed that if people worked together, they could change the unfair laws. He asked other African Americans to stop riding the city buses until the law was changed. Thousands of them stopped using the buses for almost a year. Some whites agreed that the law was unfair. Other whites liked the way things were. They were angry that Martin wanted to change things. Some even threw a bomb at his house, but the city finally changed the law to allow blacks to sit wherever they chose on a bus. This one says, blacks walked or shared cars instead of riding city buses. These women shared a station wagon to get around town. This one says, 2 black men sit at the front of a city bus in Alabama after the law was changed. A group of marchers run for safety as they are sprayed with powerful fire hoses. I Have a Dream. In 1963, Martin helped lead marches to change other laws in the South. Many of the people at one march were children. When police used force to stop the march, some of the children were badly hurt. Around the country, people saw how African Americans were treated. More and more people wanted to change the laws to be fair to everyone. When Martin led a march in Washington, D.C., more than 250,000 black and white Americans marched with him. This says, Martin's 1963 March on Washington ended near the Lincoln Memorial. At that time, it was the largest march ever held in the Capitol. That's the capital of the United States. That's the city, Washington, D.C. At the march, Martin spoke to a cheering crowd. He shared his dream that one day the color of a person's skin wouldn't matter. All people would be free at last. The next year, the United States passed a law ending the separation of blacks and whites. The work wasn't over, though. Many blacks were still poor. Their lives were still hard. Martin kept working for better homes, schools, and jobs for them. Then in the spring of 1968, Martin was shot by a white man. This one says, Martin Luther King Jr. gives his famous I Have a Dream speech. And this one says, a poor family and their Washington, D.C. apartment. Martin died at the age of 39. People around the world felt shocked and sad. Martin Luther King Jr. was a hero who worked to make the world a better place. Today we remember him for helping to make the laws fair for people of every color. And this is a glossary. Civil War. The war between the northern and southern states of the United States of America, 1861 to 1865. Marches. Organized walks through the streets by people who are supporting or protesting something. Minister. A spiritual leader in a Protestant church. Refused. Turned down or did not go along with something. Rights. Freedoms or powers that people can justly claim. Separation. The process of keeping things apart. Slavery. The state or condition of being a slave or the property of another person. All right, if you want to go back and listen, you can always click Start at the Beginning.